Okay, really quickly, while I'm on a roll, I just want to knock out a couple of things and just a couple of random plants. So here I have a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma, originally grown up a wood plank, and now needing a little bit help that it's reached the ceiling. And then up on the shelf, neon pothos and an aglaonema. I know that this is a Costa Farms aglaonema. I just don't know the name of it. So it's very pretty, very old, about 7, maybe years old. This has been one that has traveled with me through several moves, and I just really like the colors of the foliage on this guy. It's also a pretty durable plant considering all the moves and changes that it's been through. And this big old Bertha is one of my OG plants. I got this pretty quickly after I started at Costa as well. It's just a simple Monstera Deliciosa, but the special thing about this plant is that it has gone through a lot of moves. And when I moved to North Carolina from Florida, I couldn't fit this in my car, so I ended up taking one giant cutting from this original Monstera, and I had this thing rooting, and I just refused to get rid of my Monstera. So I took a cutting with me and grew it from there. Now the rest of the Monstera that I could not take with me at that time went to Justin Hancock, and a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to visit him, and he actually has the rest of my Monstera, my beautiful big Bertha is what I called her, growing in his greenhouse and happily flourishing. So this is a very special plant. It was one of my first ones. I've taken a piece of it with me. I refuse to ever get rid of this plant. And Justin has the OG, the original Big Bertha. Okay, really quick, another cacti that is also etiolating. I don't really have an excuse for this one. It is smaller. I could move it outside, and I may. And then over here, this cute little nugget. This is a Sansevieria Samurai. Very cute plant. I'm growing it in water, which is pretty funny. Because a couple of years ago, I had seen people rooting succulents in water, which didn't really make sense to me because succulents like it dry, but they root surprisingly well, very well in just water. So I thought, why not? This guy is also really likes it, dry, similar to a succulent. Let me just try it in water. And well, what do you know? It worked very well. I've had him in water for a couple of years. I don't think I'll ever change it. I just like the look of it. Sansevieria Samurai. Okay. And last, but certainly not least, is this cute little guy right here. This, I'm going to botch the name, but this is a Dione Eduli. Basically, it's like a little tiny sago palm tree something. I'm horrible. I don't really know the background of this plant, but I got it as one little tiny frond, which was, I'm just going to take it off the hook, which was super cute, this one little frond. And it took about a year, but it popped out another one. And this is one of the only plants that I really don't want it to grow because I think just the look of that one frond is super cute. But Dione Eduli, best guess right there. At the pronunciation, but that's what this guy is. Very slow grower, fortunately. Up here, this is a Ripsalis. I've had this for quite a while. There was a point when I was gonna get rid of this plant, and I'm glad I didn't. I love the wild look up there of it, and it's doing very well in this little dark office space. Over here, this is another Sansevieria again, so sorry, don't exactly know the name. I think that this one is a Sansevieria cylindrica. That's what I think it is. Okay, going over here, we'll start on this little corner. This is a Dieffenbachia Excuse you. This plant here is a Dieffenbachia reflector. I love it for, again, it's very similar to the Aglaonema pictum tricolor up there. It does have those 3 colors on it, and it looks a little bit too bright to be camouflage, but I do love the different colors that it has on it. This is a very forgiving plant. I'll just say that. And then I've got cactus on probably the darkest wall in the house. So these are definitely gonna have to get moved at some point. I'm hoping that they live here at least for a little while longer. We'll see. Over in the corner is just some Aglaonema. I don't necessarily, it's very similar to the one in the bedroom. In fact, I believe it is the same one as in the bedroom. You can see this guy isn't doing as well as the other. But, you know, it's still hanging in there. Got a little leggy. Whoops. And this guy here, this is a Rhaphidophora hayi. This is a Costa Farms plant. I'm so happy that these are starting to gain more popularity. I do, again, love shinglers. I love the way they grow up walls, moss poles, trees, wherever you let them grow. But I love the way they kind of shingle onto a surface. They're super cool plants. This guy is super, I don't know, not very trendy, but for me, I really like him. This is a Stag One Fern, not nearly as big as those staghorns you'll see in Florida, but still very special to me. I've had this guy for quite a while, and I tried to mount it to this, actually I found this piece of cutout wood at like a local wood mason area, wood shop in Miami, and I tried to secure it to the wood the best I could without hurting the plant. I think I could have done a much better job, but it's been hanging in there for a couple of years like this now. It is a bit of a pain in the butt to water because it does dry out pretty quickly. Like I said, definitely could have done a better job putting moss. Maybe I will one day put more moss over this to kind of keep that moisture in there. But as it is, it's just kind of hanging out there, and it does dry down very quickly. So Staghorn Fern, pretty low maintenance, but definitely in a situation like this, I have to water it quite a lot. This is just a Sansevieria, really great low light plant, perfect for this dark corner. Probably a much better option for this dark corner than those cacti over there. Speaking of cacti, here's a barrel cactus. Again, don't mind the fact that all of my outlets are not finished. I just really like cactus, and this guy is pretty cool. I don't think it's gonna get much larger than it is, especially sitting in this dark room as it is. But yeah, barrel cactus of some sort. Not a cactus expert, don't know the exact scientific name of this guy. Wow, here we have the hurricane fern. And I gotta say, this is really pretty in person, and I feel like the video doesn't do it justice. This is probably one of my favorites of the new Costa Farms Trending Tropicals line. I really like this one. If I could, now that I'm looking at it, part of me wants to put it again, just like that fern. I kind of want to put it on a plaque on a wall somehow, because how beautiful and symmetrical is that? Just like the bird's nest fern upstairs, the big guy, I imagine this one's going to be pretty easy. It's fairly new to my collection, but I don't imagine it would be much more difficult than the regular bird's nest. Yeah, really pretty plant. It's really pretty in person too. Videos never do it justice. And we've seen a billion of these guys, but here's one more because this is probably one of my favorite plants, is the Aetherium Clarinervium. And down here is my cat. She's never that far away. And this guy here is, we're gonna probably see a lot of these. This is an Alocasia pink dragon. It's called pink dragon because of that pink stem. Pretty easy plant. I've had this guy for a while. I actually just popped a bunch of pups off of it recently because it was starting to get a little bit crowded in there. But Alocasia pink dragon, spider mite magnet. Watch out for that one. Speaking of dragons, we've got another dragon up here. This is an Alocasia silver dragon. This has always been one of my favorites, and I'm really happy that Costa is producing this now. It's just a really kind of unique alien-looking Alocasia again, but with those nice silver colors between the veins. Okay, that's it for the office. Let's go in the next area. I want to start off the living room over in this corner. So this is a really pretty cacti. Again, I love cacti, but I don't know the names of most of them. I do know the name of this one though. So this is Asterias Peruvianist monstros. And I love the name. I was terrified to get even near to touch it. That's the thing with cacti is they're so beautiful, but God forbid you touch them. So this, again, monstros is such an appropriate name for that gnarly kind of growth all over this guy. Asterias Peruvianist monstros. This was a big item on my wish list, and I found it actually at a local plant shop in Asheville a year or two ago. Hasn't really done a whole lot, but again, I haven't put it under highlight, which I should. The problem is now that a lot of the cacti have not been in full sun, when I do put them in full sun, they burn. And it's not like other plants where they can grow new leaves and just kind of replace it. So it's tricky kind of transferring these guys, slowly transitioning them into sun. So right now he'll just kind of stay here. Maybe he'll get moved to the shade outside in a while. This is a Euphorbia. Too many plants. Can't remember the name of this one, but I do know it is a Euphorbia. This guy's grown quite a bit. He's a really fast grower. I've seen these get monstrous. Again, mine probably isn't getting that big because I don't give it that much full sun. Over down here, this is a Pothos or Pothos or whatever you want to call it. I've heard him called, and the cat again. I've heard him called, a lot of ways. I believe that this is an enjoy, but it could be a pearls and jade. Things get tricky when you get into the land of pothos, especially with the white and green variegation on them. There's a couple of them that look very, very similar. So my best guess is enjoy, maybe. But this thing is pretty giant. I've had this for a very long time. So if it had a tag in it one day, it is long gone now. But anyway, this pothos, it does have beautiful variegation. I love how all the leaves on the pothos come out different. Like this guy here, for example, and then you come over, and then there's this one, which looks very different. And then hop over here. This one's completely different too. So they are really beautiful plants. You'll see in a minute, I've got a couple growing. My intention is to get these leaves even bigger because you know me, I like big plants. So pothos, maybe enjoy, pearls and jade. If somebody knows, please tell me so I can officially figure out what this guy is once and for all. This planter, we're going to talk about the plant in a second, but can we all just admire this planter? It is so unique and so fun. It's hard to find planters like this. I did find one out and about down in Miami, and I got a shout out Daniela Hernandez and Jose Maldonado for shipping this up to me from Miami. We all went out, and they knew I loved this pot because I couldn't stop talking about this pot, and they shipped one up to me after I moved up here, and that was really nice of them. So Daniela, Jose, you guys are the best. I still have him, and he's still sporting some nice looking hair. Onto the hair of this plant. So this is a Monstera Green Galaxy. This plant goes by a couple of different names. I can never say the other ones because it's Latin. This is a really cool Monstera. It has bumpy foliage, if you can tell in the video. So the foliage is really bumpy on it. And it has this nice emerald green color. And, sometimes I'm like, wow, that's pretty. And the grower in me goes off and I say, oh my gosh, is it hungry? Which that actually could be. But no, I would say no for the most part. So this plant has like dark veins and like that light green on the inside there. So I don't think it's hungry anyway. This is just how the plant grows. And I think that color is really pretty. It's a very jade-like color. Moving right along, this is a Sansevieria starfish. You can tell by that kind of like that starfish frond shape to it. This is a cool statement piece. Again, it has a really nice structural design to it. It would look nice sitting against a white wall. Unfortunately, all of my wall space is pretty much taken. So Sansevieria starfish with quite a few pups in there, lots of babies. And next up, this is a global green, so a Pothos, Epiprenum, whatever you want to call it, Pothos, etc., etc. This is the new global green that Costa Farms launched, and it's in its trending tropicals line. It's got this really subtle variegation on it. You can see here the light green against that dark green. It's a very cool plant. This one will likely be going on the wall as well, just because I'm curious to see what it does as the leaves get larger. And right next door to it, this is a Ficus Lorata. Sorry if I botched the name on that one, but Ficus Lorata, it is a variegated rubber tree plant. Essentially, I've had this for a long time, and you can see down here, it has had the chop a couple of times. I don't remember why. I think I was trialing some new propagation methods. I don't remember. I've had this for a very, very, very long time, and it has that really nice variegated foliage on it. It is a rubber plant, so when you cut it, it's going to have a lot of white latexy sap coming out. So Ficus Lorata. These Latin names are killing me. We're not going to call this one by, well, I guess we will. The Latin name on this one I can pronounce with confidence. This is a Ficus Lorata, and nobody tell me otherwise that the pronunciation is wrong, because that's how I've been saying it for years, and that is how I will continue saying it. The common name for this is a Fiddly Fig. I have had this guy for a very long time, which was pretty challenging to move from Florida up to North Carolina. This was one of those guys where I just could not leave him behind. It's gotten very big. I have had it, again, at least 5 years. It was always pretty big, but since it's been in this corner for the last 2 years, it's gotten even bigger. And actually, it's pretty much at capacity up there. I was considering putting a grow light over this, and I could. I think that it would definitely help it. But Fiddly Figs get a really bad rap. A lot of people, talk about how difficult they are. And honestly, I would say that Alocasias are probably the finicky ones, and it definitely the spider mite magnets. But this guy hasn't really had too many fits with all of the changes it's had. It literally moved from Florida all the way up to North Carolina, and it hasn't really skipped a beat. And it was under a grow light in Miami, and now it is not. And it's been here for 2 years. I would think that if it was going to be really mad, it probably would have shown it by now. Last but not least, over here is an Allocation Zabrina. This was a very difficult plant to find. It is a really cool, simple plant. So if you see the leaf shape here, it's pretty simple. There's no variegation, there's no big cuts or fenestrations or anything. It's just a very simple leaf. But the cool thing about this plant is the stem. So this is a beautiful, beautiful stem. A lot of people, when they come over, this is one of the plants that they always ask about. And I found it once. I've had a really difficult time finding it since. But if you find one, absolutely, I would highly recommend getting it. It is easy. I do believe it may have spider mites, but not nearly as badly as things like Alocasia fretic or Calatheas. Those are just constantly, they always have spider mites. This guy, just like the Regal Shields, seems to be a little more resistant to spider mites. So again, Allocation Zabrina, pretty cool plant. It recently moved down here, so it's still adjusting to its new home. I may put it out, give it more light, let it grow a little more. Here we have a Stromanthe trio star. Trio, I would guess, is because of its 3 colors. Trio, tri, 3. It has pink. The undersides of the leaves are pink. And then on the tops of the leaves, it also has a pinkish hue to it. But it has that white and green variegation on the top. This is a tricky plant. Again, spider mites love this plant. And My word of warning for this is to just not let it dry out. It does get a little finicky when that happens. And you can see here we have a little bit of stress going on. That could have also been when I moved everybody outside for the big spray down the other week or a couple of weeks ago. I think any sort of fluctuations in its environment, it just goes into a tailspin. So it is a pretty plant though. If you can stay consistent in watering it and keep it in a consistent space, I think that over time it will kind of acclimate to where it is in its watering schedule, and it will give you gifts of lots of babies in there. So anyway, Sansevieria, not sure which species, so sorry. And then over here, I do know this species. This is a Sansevieria I'm just gonna say the common name. This is a whale fan Sansevieria. You can see why it got its name. Well, it looks like a little fin coming up. And you can't tell in the video, but the texture of this leaf, it feels like shark skin. If you've ever been fortunate, or I guess some people would call it unfortunate, enough to touch shark skin, that is very rough and coarse, and that is exactly what it feels like. It's very cool. And over here I've got a pup coming up. Before I had a pup and I broke it off and then it died, so I have PTSD from breaking the pups off, especially before they harden. This guy's hardened. I don't really have an excuse. I just have PTSD. I just won't remove him from here. Down here, another Monstera Deliciosa. Can't get enough of these guys. They are such quintessential houseplants. The OG houseplant, very structural, very designy. Love this plant. Can't go wrong with it. I even got a fancy pot for this one. I guess we'll start on over here in the corner. There we go. So this is another Euphorbia, and there's actually two in here. There's just like the regular Euphorbia, the green guy, and then up here in the front, this is a Euphorbia White Ghost, which is a super interesting plant. I've had it for a couple of years. It hasn't done a whole lot. Just like with the Ficus Lorata, the rubber plant, when you cut these, they're gonna have that white milky sap everywhere. So you can cut these arms off and root them, but I kind of like it. Its little arms and its candelabra look like this. So Euphorbia Ghost. And this is a cute story. I do want to talk about this, even though he's kind of laying on the table all sad. There's a story behind this plant. When I started at Costa Farms, I started in the trial garden. And at that time, there was a little patch of trees. And because it's Miami, we could grow orchids in the trees. And so there were a bunch of orchids tied to the trees down there. And at one point, we expanded the garden and we had to get rid of that little area. But we made sure to save the orchids that were growing in there. And so I've got this guy. He's also very special, just like the ponytail palm. This is one of my Costa plants that brings back a lot of memories. And yes, I still have it. No, it is not very happy, but it is still alive. And one day I will find the perfect spot for it, because it does look very good kind of hanging and mounted on a wall. Probably like that though. It's a very cool structural idea. If you guys want to do like plant art in your house, this is a Phalaenopsis orchid. They're fairly common. You can find them at a lot of stores. I would highly recommend getting a dead branch. Make sure it is dead and dry. And trying to mount your orchid to a branch like this, because it just makes a really pretty structural statement. This will be going up in the air once I find the perfect home for it. Just like the Stag One Fern, this does dry out very quickly because there's nothing holding that moisture in there in a pot to the roots. So be warned, if you do this, which I think you should, it's a really beautiful statement piece, you're gonna have to water it a lot. Just beware. And really quick, shout out, I won't talk too much about it, but over there is another bird of paradise. I love bird of paradise. And this is probably my biggest, prettiest one over there in the corner. So special that it even got its very own grow light. Okay, we'll start on the bottom shelf and work our way up to the top. So starting here, this is a recent transplant of mine, just this past weekend, so it's definitely not filling out the pot yet, but it will one day. This is a Philodendron Grazielle, which I got from a local plant friend. You can't tell from the video, but the leaves on this kind of remind me again of the Sansevieria whalefin. They've got this like rough texture to them, and it kind of reminds me of a Philodendron rugosum, aka a pigskin or a Philodendron pigskin. The name implies kind of a rough texture. I really like the plants with different texture leaves. It's just really kind of fun to touch all the super soft ones or the somewhat rough ones, and get that full kind of tactile experience. Over here, we're gonna go into the mixed bag zone. I don't know what's in this pot anymore. I just had a bunch of pothos cuttings, and I put them in a pot. It is literally a grab bag in there. I think I've got a couple different things in there. My plan with this and a couple others that we'll go over shortly is to grow them up the wall and get those big leaves. So there's a mixed bag of pothos there. Here is another, this is a philodendron. Again, this guy's gonna be growing up the wall. I wanna see what those leaves look like when they get bigger. Can you imagine when this gets bigger what it's gonna look like? Oh, here we have one more pink dragon. This was one of the pups, even though it's giant, one of the pups that I popped off the mother. Again, that pink stem right there. This is an Epiprinum Cebu Blue. You can tell it's got that kind of like that blue color to its leaves. This is definitely going up the wall. I've seen quite a few with those. Is when these guys grow up, they get really big kind of fenestrations and cuts in their leaves, and I just, again, love big leaves. I love big plants, and this is gonna go on the wall probably fairly shortly. Over here, another mixed bag of pothos. I think I've got Marble Queen in there. I think there is a Mandula and the Pearls and Jade or the Enjoy. I've got just a mixed bag of pothos in that pot right there. And then over here, last but not least, if we can get a good view of him, another Euphorbia. I really love big, giant cacti and Euphorbia. And this is another one. Don't know the name of it, but it's really cool and I like it. Moving right along, these are more Syngonium albo variegatas over here, trying to cut them and make sure that they remain variegated instead of reverting. This is another Philodendron Radiatum, got it from a friend. Another Alocasia pink dragon with that pink stem down there. Here we have, whoa, go back. Here we have an Alocasia silver not silver dragon. They are confused a lot. This is an Alocasia dragon scale. It's difficult to tell this apart from the silver dragon, but if you kind of look at them side by side, this has a darker look to it than the silver dragon, which has much lighter colors between the veins. So again, Alocasia dragon scale also has that similar alien-y kind of look to the leaf. Over here, so excited about this one. This is a Epiprinum Baltic Blue, which is ironic. I didn't place them like this, but you see right down there is a Cebu Blue, and then here we have the Baltic Blue. This guy has a little bit more of like a darker color, but you notice this is also fenestrating a lot sooner than the Cebu Blue, which is so exciting because I've always wanted the leaves with the big cuts in them. So I imagine once this guy goes on the wall, because as you imagined, it's going on a wall, I imagine that the fenestrations will just get larger and larger pretty quickly. Again, Epiprinum Baltic Blue. This is in the Costa Farms Trending Tropicals line. This is such a cool plant. I really like this plant. Oh, too many plants. I can't remember the names of all of them. I mean, So, here we have another alocasia, just like the dragon scale and the Cooperia and the silver dragon. This also has that little alien look to it. This is an alocasia black velvet. That leaf is, it's so hard to tell in the videos, but it is pretty velvety, as the name implies, and that darker color here. So on the undersides, they have that nice red color to the undersides of their leaves, and the big, like velvety round leaves. So that alocasia, black velvet. Here we have an Alocasia Freddick, and I don't really want to talk. I mean, I guess I'll talk about this plant. It's a really cool plant. As you can see, it's got nice white silver veins. It's a really cool statement plant. It is a spider mite magnet. They love this plant. This is probably like the canary in the coal mine if you have spider mites. This is probably where they're going to show up first. So if I can get it clear here, it's going to be challenging. So if you see those little pinpricks on the plant, if I can zoom in, there we go. You can see, it's hard to see, but this plant has a bunch of little pinpricky kind of like yellow pinprick spots on it. This is indicative of two-spotted spider mite damage. And because they're feeding on that first layer of the plant tissue, you're just going to get tiny little spots as those little cells collapse. So it's not going to be as severe as, like, say, caterpillar damage or even aphids and thrips. Thrips will scrape the foliage, but spider mites can really only feed from that top layer of cells. So as they feed, the cells are literally like collapsing and dying, hence the little tiny pinprick looks on it. So this had two-spotted spider mites. There's a chance it still does, but it got hosed down and then hosed down again the other weekend, because this is, I'm honestly probably shouldn't be keeping this with the rest of my plants, because if it starts here, it's going to go everywhere. It's a really pretty plant. I don't want to discourage people from this plant too much, but just keep in mind, when you get this, keep a wary eye out for those little pinprick spots, because they will start here before they go anywhere else. Jumping over, Philodendron Pink Princess. I have a love-hate relationship with this plant. I love it because it is very cool, and I love that pink. It's unique, very unique, especially for like this philodendron. But I have had bad luck with this plant in the past. I'm giving it another whirl, and it's not off to a great start because I already kind of accidentally chopped the top off. I don't know what I was doing. I think I was moving it. And I accidentally broke the top clean off. So it looks like it's recovering now, but our try number 3 is not off to a good start here. Scrolling over here to the Philodendron Birkin. This is a really cool plant. I'm loving the variegation on this one. I had a Birkin before, and it wasn't nearly as white as this. It was kind of more of a subtle variegation. So this, again, is in the Trending Tropicals line at Costa Farms, and this variegation on this guy is very, very, very strong. So Philodendron Birkin. Moving over here, another pink dragon. I've got a lot of them. And then over here, this is a Stingray Alocasia. Let's see. There we go. So it's got that kind of tapered leaf. This honestly would look like a skeleton key, like an Epipremnum skeleton key. It kind of looks like a caterpillar or something chewed the leaf off, and then it just has a string coming out. This is not an Epipremnum. This is an Alocasia, and it's called Allocation Stingray. Again, similar look. It looks like it got chewed off, and it's got that big old tail. If you think about it, that's like kind of the tail of the stingray, and then this is the head right here. So, Allocation Stingray, pretty cool plant. And over here, I think this is the last one on this shelf. Looks a little bit gnarly right now, just because she was really big for the pot, and instead of repotting it, I kind of just hacked it all back. And the reason I chose to do that was because sometimes, not all the times, it can help with branching. And so I cut it all back recently. This is a Tradescantia Nanook. I didn't say the name. Tradescantia Nanook. And it will be fine, This plant is a pretty easy one to grow, and I'm sure that it will grow back from all of this here. In fact, maybe if I'm lucky, I don't know yet, it could branch on both sides if I'm lucky. If not, then I'll just get one new stem coming out like it was never even cut. But anyway, Tradescantia Nanook, super easy plant right there. Okay, I had to get on the ladder now. We're on the second to last shelf. We're on the almost top shelf right here. So let's just zip through. Over here we'll start. This is, I don't know. It is a succulent that I got from a very good friend of mine, Suzanne Wainwright, aka the Bug Lady. She gave me a cutting of this succulent that she's had for a very long time, and it's basically a friendship plant. We'll just call it a friendship plant. And over here, we're not going to look at that too much as a sad string of turtles. That's just starting. Same thing here. There's a lot of sad plants on this shelf. I'm just going to warn you. This is an Alocasia cuprea. This is going to be okay. These new leaves coming out are just about ready to pop. This is that dark looking alien plant. Again, I had a giant plant and it just started really hating its pot, so I chopped it into a lot of pieces. This is one of the offspring of those. We're gonna just skip over this plant entirely right now. This here is kind of a sentimental plant. It is I think that this is a Christmas cactus. Honestly, I can't be sure because I haven't seen it bloom yet. But this is a plant from my neighbor next door, and she got this decades ago when she married her husband. Her mother-in-law gave her a cutting of, we're just going to call it a Christmas cactus, that she got when she married as well. So we did the math. This plant has been passed down by 2 or 3 women over a couple of generations. And so this plant in particular isn't very, very old, but the plant that this came from is very, very, very old. And it was really cute that she trusted me with a cutting of this. And so it's more than a cutting now, and I will keep the legacy alive by never letting this guy die. At this point, it's, I would imagine, 80 to 100 years, maybe, that the original plant, genetics at least, have been around. So this is a pretty cute sentimental plant. Over here, Black Velvet Baby had to grab this guy out. It just wasn't doing well, so I wanted to kind of pop it out and see if I could save it. I'm optimistic. Looks like there's a grow point down there. This was the mother begonia plant. We didn't go into them too much on the plant shelf upstairs, but I got it from a local friend, and because I'm reckless, I immediately hacked it into bits, just as kind of like a fail-safe to make sure that I had a good couple of ones. Plus, I like to chop things and grow them so that I can put them all together when they're all rooted out and just have one giant full plant. Over here, we've got some Alocasia phoretic babies. These popped out of the big guy down there. Again, spider mite magnet. So far, so good on these. We'll see. Time will tell. And then this bunch of plants right here, these are all Jose Buonos that plant that was upstairs that had just reached the top of the pole. I just chopped it into little bits, and this is what came of all of those. So these are all little Philodendron Jose Buonos. This is a Ripsalis basifera, a really cool plant. I was about to get a Hoya linearis, but I'm not really into Hoyas as much as I am Ripsalis. So I ended up getting this guy, which was such a great choice. It's got that really simple kind of line thing trailing down. And this will be going over the stairs with all the other strings of things. Speaking of strings of things, we've got all my strings of things right here. These were all from local plant friends, so they're not all quite grown out yet. Some of them started as cuttings, some of them started as little rooted plugs, etc., etc. This guy here is a variegated string of hearts. I'm not even going to try to say the Latin name on this one. Maybe we could flash it across the screen, but variegated string of hearts right there. This is also a string of hearts, but it is called Silver Glory. Those leaves are just, again, silver, like pure, beautiful silver leaves. So string of hearts right here, Silver Glory. Over here, this guy is called a string of arrows. It's got kind of a different shape to it than the string of hearts. And then over here, looks a little sad, but it's okay. It'll grow back out of the soil. I just potted this guy up. This is a Peperomia Ruby Cascade. I'm gonna have to reach out a little bit here. Get down from the ladder a little bit. Okay. Here's another Begonia Maculata. It's really funny, or we haven't seen the other one yet, but this is one of the Begonia Maculatas that I have. Okay, back up on the ladder. Wrapping up here, this is a Begonia Maculata. It is under extremely high light. I mean, it's inches from those lights. So it's pretty nice because it's so close to the light. Its foliage has stayed really tight together. It's nice and compact. It's not stretching at all. So this guy is pretty unique in how short he is. And then over here, more Epiprinum Shangri-Las, that kind of gnarly looking crinkled leaf. This is some sort of caladium. I cannot remember which one it was, but since it's spring, summer, it's finally coming out of dormancy. Yes, for some reason, my caladiums still go dormant in the winter, even though I keep them under grow lights. Over here, this is a jewel orchid. Not sure which species, but I do know it is a jewel orchid. These are very pretty plants. There's a whole slew of different colors and varieties in these. I think that this is a Lutetia. Latin again. Maybe we'll flash the name over this, please. But this is a jewel orchid. Again, velvety leaves. Really cool plant. Very slow growing. Down here, this is a honeydew plant. And again, this was a gift from a local plant friend. This is a really cool plant because it's got a purpose. This is a carnivorous plant. So everybody is familiar with the Venus flytrap plant. There's also this guy. And the video isn't showing it very well, but if you can see, here there's some, like, they look like little tiny hairs. These are actually hairs with little tiny droplets on the ends of them. Let's see if I can, it's very hard to get videos of the details of this guy. Well, you gotta take my word for it. These are little tiny hairs with little droplets of water on the ends of them. And the way they work is when bugs are flying around, they can get stuck to that little droplet, hence the name honeydew plant. And then they get stuck, the leaves curl in, and they actually will dissolve the bug on the leaf and eat it. This guy's already caught quite a few fungus gnats. And this here, not to be too gruesome, but this was a fly. That little black mark, it no longer looks like a fly, but it was like a regular house fly. And then there's a bunch of little black dots in there. If you can make them out in the video, those were fungus gnats. So good plant to have around. Definitely has a purpose with all the other plants. I think there's nothing on this last shelf except for probably one or two plants at the end that we haven't seen yet, but we'll just go through them anyway. This is a Philodendron Postazanum. It's got those big old ruffly leaves again in that white vein down the middle. This is what I was talking about with the Begonia Maculatas. Normally they get a little bit leggier if you don't keep them under high light, which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, everybody has their personal preference. Sometimes if they get too leggy, a good thing to do if they just become like one stem and some leaves at the end, you can just chop it and stick it, and chop it, stick it back in the soil, chop it, stick it back, and that'll help you kind of keep that full plant look. This was probably one of my first plants that I got when I started collecting, It is very unique with those little white spots. The leaves and the white spots have this beautiful silvery sheen to them, and I will never not have this plant. This is always going to be in my collection, Begonia Maculata. Couple more plants left. So this guy, if I can get a good angle, this is an Aetherium Big Splash. Found this at Fairchild down in Miami a couple of years ago. Completely neglected it, and until recently I have finally repotted it after years and years in the same pot. So I don't really know what this guy's capable of. I haven't really given him a chance, but now he's got finally the opportunity to flourish. So Aetherium Big Splash. And last but not least, we'll just skip to this guy over here. This is a Geogenanthus. This is a new release from Costa Farms. It's pretty cool and exciting because it's the first of its kind in the United States. I've never seen a plant like this before. I don't know the best way to care for it, so I put it over here on the top shelf where it's nice and warm and not too much light. That dark foliage does make me a little bit worried about burning that with too much light, but this is a very cool, super thick leaf plant, and I'm excited to see what it does. So Geogenanthus right there, brand new.